Also, just you were going to make the point before we move on from this game, which we should, of just between the Hogg injury and the Sexton going off, that there's just that type of play.
I want to talk a little bit about that exactly, the damage that's potentially being done to the game by these. It starts like it's a broad conversation, safety in rugby. We just had a report out this week about motor neuron disease, apparently 8 times more common in contact sports. I think it was probably possibly done with an NFL connotation. I know there's a couple of NFL players have it. Obviously, Juice van der Westhuizen has it, but I think it was actually rugby, this study, because I read it in a few articles about it, that it was 8 times more likely, was the stat that came out of it, to have motor neuron disease if you're in rugby.
Is it a former rugby player or a former professional rugby player? Do you know?
I don't.
Okay.
I wish I had more details. It's just it's not the whole point. It's just it's a broader context of which we talk about this. The other one is the Falau Fayanga, the Australian hooker. Good player, had to retire from multiple concussions in the week, and he was talking about he was at, I think, his brother's wedding, and he actually had to be held up at the altar.
Kevin McLaughlin, former Leinster player as well, he had the same retirement issue, and he's actually very outspoken now about he's one who's on board with the below the nipple line tackle. That's one of his that he's trying to advocate for. I'm not entirely sold on that one specifically, because I just dynamically don't see how it'll work indeed in the context of the game. But things like the Sexton, like what we're talking about from this game,
exactly. Where of it pivots to the weekend, I thought was a lot of people were bitching about the poor quality of the second half. And I was just sort of pondering and musing. It's like, it was significantly worse than the first. It was significantly less interesting from just a neutral perspective.
Sure,
there was a lot of mistakes. There was a lot of slow tempo, and I think unquestionably the game suffered from having the two superstars
of each team.
There are some other superstars in each team, but the two real superstars, your World Player of the Year and your
they're also kind of like living embodiments of what that team is about.
No, the two box office guys who people are going to be tuning in to look at, Stuart Hogg and Johnny Sexton, both left the field, and to my mind, they both left the field because of cynical targeting that's going on defensively. I don't think I think unquestionably. I think the Peter O'Mahony one is a little more clear cut because it was actually just genuinely illegal play that should have been pulled up. And it's curious, should it just be a penalty? A lot of people are saying like it should just be a penalty. It's just a late hit. It's low. For me, there's no arms in it. There's just something about the shot, the late shot, that people don't appreciate, where you're catching guys who aren't expecting to be hit, or who are a little limp in their bodies, like they're not braced for the hit. They're being caught cold. And like that one on Stuart Hogg, when you see the angle adjust and he drops the shoulder and he leans in,
the elbow.
You heard it described as just like a bit of niggle, a bit of this, a bit of that.
It's very, very dirty, very effective. Cynical play.
Effective is one word for it. Like what he's doing, I think he knows full well who's kicking that ball. It's Stuart Hogg, and I think he's trying to hurt him. And another word for hurt is injure him, be it one way or another. Like I don't think that Peter O'Mahony genuinely thinks I don't want Stuart Hogg on the pitch, maybe, but it's a part of it.
You want him a yard slower.
You want him weaker. You want him hurt. And
same goes for Sexton as well. The props aren't going to injure him, but they're also going to make sure that if he's going to take it to the line and be as flat as he is, I'm going to hit him.
They're kind of like injure and hurt. Like the words do a lot of work. It feels very dirty. Like I got no issues. They're out there to hurt him. And the injury is a consequence of the hurt. They're not too pushed. They know that it will hurt. They know that either a Sexton that gets creased by me late, or a Sexton that gets taken out of the game is going to weaken Ireland. And I just like back in the old days, you got targeting of fly halves.
You still do,
but you could respond. You could like the old school sort of, because there's a counter to this, because essentially none of what Scotland did by the law is illegal. None of they were all committed, as it were, but they were never trying to play a guy on the ball. There was just never a sense of that. Sexton was giving the pass. They were just making a shape so to seem like, okay, I can't pull out of this, and then hitting him after he released the ball. Cynically, just he's there, I can sort of legally hit him, I'm going to do as much damage as I can. That was the play, and get him out of the play, get him on the ground. And it's not illegal. by the law book, but it's pretty cynical, I think. And
as to pivot back to that point in terms of those concussions, it's becoming less tenable as we're focused on tackle laws, as we're focused on concussions, head injuries, high tackles, aerial collisions, all being looked at as far as player safety is concerned. The fact that 10s more often than not, and like Johnny Sexton's quite a big fella for 10. But
it's not just 10s either. Like Stuart Hogg is the same. I think he's the key playmaker. The same thing.
Yeah, you're going to have these dainty, like small playmakers, skillful guys, and they're going to be lined up, and particularly in the 10 channel more so than Hogg, they're going to be lined up against front row forwards a lot of the time, and they're going to be the ones hitting. And there's like such a discrepancy of weight there that like, and as well as like just the like kind of ballistic laws of the two of them crashing into each other. There's going to be a loser of that contact. And as you were saying, or kind of touching on, in years gone by, it could have been like sorted out off the ball in other like dirty dark arts kind of ways, where it's like, oh, you hit our fly half off the ball, right, next ruck I'm going to like maul you in a very also illegal fashion.
I'm going to turn around and hit you in the head. That's the point, is that like nowadays if a team decides to target your 10, like because a lot of people who will stick with it, this is rugby, it's a man, you have to be able to take it. The bottom line is, you first as a team you've no recourse. Basically. If this big guy decides to smash your 10, like that's it, and he's just going to keep doing it. Well, the ref isn't going to help you, and if you try to intervene in any way, the ref is going to hinder you. You're going to get pulled up on it. So it's just like I don't know that Phil Bennett could have survived in the modern game. The guys are getting so huge. Like the Willie John McBride was considered a beast. What was he, 6'2"? You're getting 6'6".
Courtney Laws,
chopping
10s in half.
And look at when he's in the ball, it can be it's a fair play to play a guy in the ball. It is a tough sport, but it's those cynical shots that are coming in late, targeting of a guy after he's given the ball, knocking him onto the floor, that I think is going to have to be looked at, because it's those little cheap shots that guys are getting away with, and guys are deliberately saying, every time this guy touches the ball, I don't care if the ball is gone, he's hitting the floor, he's getting hurt, and it's just. I fear that it could play guys out of the game. That you could see skillful players just not being able to play anymore because they're just going to get killed by super athletes. I don't know. It's
a pet theory.
It's not just a pet. Like it's.
I don't know if I don't know if I fully agree with it, because like the other thing that Sexton does more so than any other out half, it seems, is just play that close to the gain line and play that square. This was a good point that actually Brian O'Driscoll was making during the week on Off the Ball, that like compared to Joey Carberry, who occasionally takes a late hit as well from 10, he tends to shape his body when he's throwing a pass, like he's already over here when the pass is being released, whereas Sexton's literally like square on, the pass is released at the last minute and is released like that with his body still there, and he's like very courageous, and it's unusual for a 10 in his mid-30s to be playing that way, because more often than not they're standing deeper and like sheltering from that.
I think you're going to start seeing it happen to Owen Farrell as well. I think you already do to some degree, and I think you're going to start to see him taking those knocks. I just like it's I haven't got any answers. That's the point. It's like I'm not trying to articulate a destruction of rugby or anything like that, or I just think that they like.
You were floating.
It shouldn't be the case that being a professional rugby player as a wee man condemns you to the future of, a running back in the NFL. If you're a running back in the NFL, you're gonna retire a broken man more often than not. Because you're just gonna get consistently creased. Obviously they have probably worse head issues than we do with the helmet issues and everything else, but you're going to just get consistently smashed and targeted and destroyed. There's it's a man's game stuff which exists, but I think it's one of the areas, I'll just put it this way, I think it's one of the areas that they're going to have to be a little harsher on. Is the targeting of players to try, like, to my mind, to try and injure them. And I think certainly Peter O'Mahony should have been pulled up, because I thought it was very cynical play, and it was deliberately on the wee superstar player, and it worked in the sense that it just took him out of the game, and he was probably Scotland's biggest threat and biggest chance of getting into the game. And likewise with Ireland, had Sexton been on the field, perhaps we would have had more of an opportunity to have a leader on the pitch who might notice how weak Scotland were and might push them back and maybe got the fourth try, which would have kept us alive in the championship. I think but I think that, like, the second half would have been a much more interesting game
had both of those guys
there. It could be an anomaly, but I also think it's a growing trend.
And you were floating the idea of like something similar to the NFL to bring back that point of like an unnecessary roughness or a rough type of call.
I like it's very. The point is, I don't have a definitive answer on it. Like I don't know if the nipple line is very much just throwing something out there. Like I don't know to what extent these will work. I just know that it needs to be focused on, because the argument of the people who want to ban these sports and who want to sell you the horror stories of all the post-career injuries and everything like that, it becomes a hell of a lot better when our only defense is sort of the libertarian angle, which ultimately we agree with, but like the libertarian angle of just jouet, you be a man and go out there and fuck it, and whatever happens. And I just man up. Like I don't like the idea that you have to confine yourself to a lifetime of pain, a post-career lifetime of just pain and broken bodied and perhaps CTE and whatever else. And it may be the case, but I think we should definitely limit the probability of that happening. I was sort of rambling. Like I wanted to include this video just because I thought it was worth mentioning, but I haven't organised my own thoughts enough to have a definitive answer on it.
I would love to hear some of your thoughts on it as well. It's just something we've been noticing a little bit of late, and especially with the way the game's going and the size of teams now, it's becoming more of a pressing issue.
Like
as there's that discrepancy.
Exactly. Like you could have, like, the World Cup is going to be an interesting one just to finish up on. I just think it's the last World Cup was such a the media from it was as a spectacle, as a showcase of rugby. It was just glowing. You had this great All Blacks team. You had that Japan story. You had infinite, seemingly, tries all through the tournament. Great rugby being played. Great
Tier
fans.
2 teams putting it up to other teams. It was good.
So much to love. I fear, like, if we're true, I just have, and this is totally just conjecture, but I just have a niggling feeling that this World Cup may end up getting some bad press, and it'll be revolving around one of two things: either like stringently enforced laws, lots of new yellow cards, lots of new red cards
that are game destroying,
and that soul destroying for some fans, and it's one of those things where they're trying to regulate the game, or the reverse opposite of it, where you have, because I think it's every team is starting to do it, where not every team was starting to do it, but playmakers getting taken out. So you list your who's who, particularly backs and half-backs, and small guys, like your who's who of who are the game-breaking players in the world, your Bowden Barretts, your Johnny Sextons, your Owen Farrells, even potentially like your Nicolas Sanchez's, although there's scarcely a tougher motherfucker in world rugby than him. But those guys, you could see them targeted, and you could see them hit, and you could see them broken, and that could be a narrative that comes from the World Cup as well. Now it's just a forewarning of it. It's all speculation.
They're going like the World Cup, and then by the knockout stages, Bowden, Sexton, Hogg, Farrell, all injured. Faf de Klerk, all gone by the knockout stages. It'd be a weird one.
It's maybe I'm wrong,
test of depth,
but I'm just a little bit worried for the game and what's coming from it going forward.
It's definitely an interesting one. It's definitely a recurring one in terms of those shots. As Irish fans, it's not just bitching and moaning, because I know Sexton invites that more so than the likes of Hogg, and that's why in terms of those instances, there was one that was clearly worse, and it was the Peter O'Mahony one. And it's like
my point is that, like, I don't actually buy that as an argument for the Dell hit that put Stockdale into space. Sure, although, as Joe says, Dell had lined him up from a mile out and was determined to hit him, even at the expense of covering the hole that Stockdale was meant to run through that cost his team a try. But like, it was every time Sexton got the ball, there was a player in front of him who didn't care whether he passed or not. He was going to hit him, put him on the floor. And like, it was nothing to do with Sexton. I don't think a lot of them were to do with Sexton's shape. I think it was targeting of him, legal targeting of him, but something that the game perhaps may need to look at, or it could lose all of its stars. I think there's certainly a possibility for that. Thanks for watching the Overlap Rugby podcast. If you want to subscribe, there should be a button up here. Don't forget to give us a like and share with your friends, and please leave comments down below. We love the conversation. Thanks.